and hopefully everybody can see that screen.
Yeah, it's come through there, Simon.
Good, fantastic. So good morning, everybody. So I know we've done quick introductions, but just a little bit more detail. So my name is Simon Pike. I'm a market solution specialist here at Netcall. As I said earlier, my area of expertise is local government. So in charge of, as I say, our Liberty Create technology low code for local government and for housing associations, which is also sold into health and the corporate sector as well. And alongside that, also have responsibility for RPA into local government as well, and pushing that out across the market space. So looking at talking to yourselves, understanding what it is that you want the solutions to do, and then helping our teams back at base improve the offering in the platform to help deliver those. So Nick, I think we're going to start off with a poll. Nick's going to put a poll up for us, I hope, which asks you to please rank your top 3 challenges: meeting remote working, digitized services, meeting customer expectations, IT backlog, regeneration, or budget shortfalls. So hopefully that'll come up in a second.
Simon, if you could just bear with me, I'm having problems with the polling. So if you could just move to the next slide, then I shall let you know as soon as. It should only be a matter of minutes.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll carry on then for now. What do we think the challenges are in 2021 and that your councils will face? So we put 4 things up there. So the challenges that we know you will face as you go through the rest of this year and into next are around digitising services, and how do you make this possible with a range of back office systems or perhaps paper-based systems that might currently be in place. And projects implemented potentially being impacted by the COVID pandemic over the last 18 months. How can you therefore help to meet the customer expectation? Do we know what the customer expectation is? If not, how are we going to meet it? A big challenge, I think, particularly as a result of the COVID pandemic. The challenge that you might face here is about how to engage with your customers, whether they're internal or external. And if you do know what the customer expectation is their journey that their expectation is with yourselves aligned with the data that you need to collect? I think we all see a long list of projects that need delivering, some of which have had to be implemented rapidly over the last 18 months. But as I said, some of the planned projects may have slipped. You're now faced with a backlog of projects, potentially, limited resources and skills, and a limited or decreasing budget due to the pressures from the pandemic. So there's an opportunity now, more than ever, to collaborate with your peers across other councils, whether that be in Wales or across the rest of the UK, share resources and developments, and share applications. This is where the Netcall community comes into its own, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, with councils building and sharing applications with each other. In fact, a number of our existing customers, this was vital to getting through the pressure of COVID, particularly around specific COVID applications. We hear a lot about low code, so what is it? The term low code itself has been around since Forrester Research came up with it back in 2014. But as a concept, it's building software quickly, reusability of components, and reducing the need for traditional development. It's not that new. Historically, it may have been called rapid application development platforms or 4GL platforms. And to be honest, the term low code is now used to describe anything that has a configurable admin. So there is even a difference between a low code platform and a piece of software with low code features. We're obviously talking about the platform that you can use to build anything here today. The software job is never complete. The one thing that jumps out at me every time I speak to an event or to customers directly is that they all need more software than they'll ever be able to develop. And even when they've got what they need, the first piece of software they delivered for the business needs replacing, and around the merry-go-round they go again. It's a bit like painting the Prince of Wales Bridge. As soon as you finish, you have to start again. And that's not surprising, really, because the world of technology is moving so fast. The first piece of software deployed would have been fully up to date using the latest thinking and the newest and fastest approaches to development. However, by the time you swing back around, it's legacy. The developers that built it may have moved on, and you're left trying to work out how to support it. Then, of course, we have the well-publicised digital skill shortage. There was a recent BBC article that stated that young people taking IT subjects at GCSE have dropped by 40% since 2015.
Simon, I now have polling capability.
Okay, that's fine. So let's have a quick run of that poll and just see what the response comes back on that.
Let's poll. Here we go. Can people vote?
Hi, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it asks for please rank your top 3 challenges, and you can only choose one.
Fiddlesticks. Just choose one.
Choose one now.
Yeah. The other day. Right. I'm ending polling.
See what that comes up as.
And show results.
Okay. Meeting remote working challenges is down at 0. I'm not surprised. I think everybody's had to adapt to that, haven't they, over the last 18 months. Digitizing services is quite high. Okay, that's fine. IT backlog supports that issue around projects potentially getting delayed and budget shortfalls. And yeah, okay, some interesting figures there. But regeneration is not something that is on your top challenges at the moment based on a single response. But that's something that interestingly might come a bit later. There's a big push in some councils in England, particularly around looking at regeneration and how digital transformation can support that regeneration. So that's interesting. Thank you for that.
Can I stop sharing the results now, Simon?
You can.
Excellent.
Right. Okay. So real value and speed. So when it comes to low code, IT governance is still a critical part of digital transformation. There is a need to govern what software is being used in the business. Departments will find a way to do what they need to do, access Excel or Jack the Graduate, who can do a bit of coding, and then IT are left with a mess to maintain. By using a platform, everything is built and deployed in a uniform way, and we, as the platform vendors, ensure it's fully patched and kept vulnerability free. There is a need, however, to engage the department's subject matter experts in what needs to be developed and how it should work, and not in the old school way of contributing to a high-level design requirements document, but by actually getting involved in the development and taking an iterative approach. Our initial training to build apps on the platform is 3 days for the essential course, and it can be done via e-learning. Anyone who understands the internet can get involved, with the risk significantly reduced because they're not coding. There's configuring, and the ability to get it wrong is reduced as such. There's an opportunity to look at consolidating your supplier relationships and applications. Is a single supplier relationship the way forward? When you look at one of our biggest customers in terms of applications deployed, that's somebody like, let's say, Nationwide Building Society. They have 30 plus applications used for all sorts across their organization. They could have been 30 different suppliers to engage with, or worse still, 30 old applications that they've got to patch and update using scarce development resource. And then we get to, and we can build quicker. We sometimes think that the previous points that we mentioned are undervalued benefits, really. I know in our organization, we're always looking to consolidate, and that's why our sales CRM, support ticket portal, community and documentation portal, and our features ideas app are all built on our own Liberty platform. Liberty Create is our low-code platform as opposed to a no-code platform. So what's the difference? Well, the ability to extend the platform's capability when you need to, but you don't have to. It's always a cute ploy by the no-code platforms to try and suggest you still need developers. You definitely don't. Probably 90% of applications organizations build on the platform don't make use of our code studio at all. But when you hit something in the platform that it can't do, there is always the option to add it. And let's be honest, every piece of software has limitations. We just give away in our platform of ensuring it doesn't leave you out of options. We've also recently added our test and monitor studios for similar reasons. This is getting hold of a test and app management resources was difficult and expensive, so why not incorporate them into the platform and bring it all together so that the entire software development lifecycle is considered. Otherwise, there's a risk that you're building the applications quicker, but then dropping into a typical IT backlog for testing and deployment. Is one of the main reasons our enterprise customer IT departments are comfortable letting their departments build applications. They know they can drop into Test and Monitor Studio and see how the application is performing. It gives them that governance, control, and auditability that they need, regardless of who's building the app itself. So what's next? As with everything else in this world, and certainly with technology, low code is already progressing, and we're seeing a shift towards the use of the phrase intelligent automation platforms. In truth, that definition isn't established, and Googling the term will result in a number of different definitions that all have low code or case management or BPM at their core. And now with the added RPA and AI incorporated, as we've already covered earlier this week. Many of you may be aware, if those that attended on Monday, that Netcall acquired an RPA organisation last year, Automagica, and that's since been fully embedded into our Liberty platform and also allows our customers to make use of Google Cloud AI services directly from the platform as well. We see this approach as an extension of the toolkit concept, but aim to differentiate by ensuring everything works together seamlessly. So I'm just going to play a little video for you of something that we ran recently with a number of our councils. So we recently run this event called Build an App in a Week. We collaborated with 3 local authorities to scope, design and build an application around the management of food hygiene inspections in the hospitality sector. We ran a preliminary meeting to talk through the process with a prototype wireframe process model to understand the critical steps and procedures that environmental health officers have to follow. We then moved to development with daily stand-ups to provide updates in the form of demonstrations and clarifications. Then at the end of the week, we were able to demonstrate the fully working solution. This has now been shared through the app share on our Netcall community for other councils to have access to at no cost. And we have plans to run a similar event for our housing customers later this year. Did I go on too far? Bear with me. So what sort of things should you be thinking about if you're considering low code? So we've listed a number of the options up there, so let's just go through them one by one. So building, can anybody really build an application in low code? Well, the simple answer to that is yes. You need training, of course, on how to use the toolkit. And once you've done that initial training with ourselves, for example, you would then go through an accreditation process and you're then certified to design and build applications in the platform. In fact, myself, I'm not a developer. I've done that training and I build applications that we use internally and even some of the things that are up and available in our app share for our customers. Testing. The platform should, as a minimum, provides, as a minimum, the suggestion is as a minimum that you have 3 environments for each application that you develop. So we'd recommend a build, a test and a live. You design the application in build, do some testing as you're building to make sure it does what you expect. Then you would promote that up to test so your end users can have access to UAT and then feedback, and then you modify and promote again. And then once everything's done, you can then push it up to live. And there's also this option of our Test Studio functionality that I talked about earlier, which can help with automated testing as you go through, particularly covering off things like regression testing. Documentation, you can export a number of the areas of the system out as PDFs. For example, the business process can be exported as a PDF. But the best way to build, though, is to document in the system as you build. And we provide options within all areas of the build area to document exactly what each thing should be doing, each process, each rule, each message, etc. So that when somebody picks it up in the future, they can see exactly what the application was developed to do, how it's being developed, and can maintain it going forwards, which links us on to ongoing improvement. As we've already said, what you develop and deliver as a solution today is fine for now, but processes, policies, and requirements change. Low code provides you with the way to monitor through the live process reporting, identifying visually where bottlenecks in the process exist, and adapt and modify the process yourself without the need to come back to us as a supplier. Collaboration and investment, I'm going to cover together. So this is perhaps one of the most important aspects of our Liberty platform. Our Netcall community includes areas for questions and feedback, which is monitored by all of our community users. And Netcall staff, this means that you will get answers from your peers and from subject experts within our business. If you're struggling with something or simply want to talk about something you're doing and are looking for someone in a similar boat, then the community is an ideal place for this. We also have our app share. This is not an app store. Everything in the app share is free to those using the Create platform. And this can include things like pre-built services for councils and housing associations. And we actively encourage our customers to share the builds that they develop themselves too. So, oh, it's going to crash, hang on. Sorry about this. Just when you don't want it to crash. Whilst I get back to that screen, apologise. Right, so we recently spoke to one of our customers, Ashfield District Council, and asked them for some of their top tips. And here is what they had to say. Number one, you need to make sure that when implementing a new technology to deliver digital transformation, that you have the correct resources in place. It isn't as simple as lifting and shifting what you already have. You need resources to support the initial work and the ongoing maintenance. So your capacity for transformation, it is demanding, is doing a digital transformation correctly. Set yourself a very clear vision or a blueprint of what you want to achieve, and make sure there's a plan to deliver, and break this down into manageable chunks. Don't try and do everything in one go. Pick small areas, break it down, and deliver those progressively. And once you've got your first service migrated and put into a local platform, then you'll find that people buy into that, and it becomes known that that's what the pace of development can be, and there'll be a demand for the services that you can deliver through low code. You have to be flexible. I've lost an option there. Have to be flexible to the customer needs. Thinking about user-centered development means you actually have to engage with the users, and they may throw some curveballs in there that you haven't considered, and you have to be adaptable to these. That said, you also have to look at the change in the way in which you implement. Think about a minimum viable product approach and then build on that. Low code is designed to support iterative development, which means you don't have to have everything there on day one. Communicate widely. Keep the communication channels open. Make sure everybody is kept up to date and informed right throughout the project. Involve your departments in your sprint reviews. Show them changes in the applications regularly. It's easier to change something earlier in the development than have to go back to stage one just as you approach your deadlines. So, advice for customers embarking on a low-code project. So big picture, it is an agile and iterative development. That does mean that you need, as we've already said, the resources in place. Low code is not a part-time dev process. It does mean that you need to be focused on it. You need to have people there, and by all means bring in the subject matter experts, but it needs a proper team resource to help deliver that, and that being predominantly their focused. Best success, involve all users. We kind of talked about this already. Think about a multidisciplinary project team, bring people in from other service areas to deliver a specific project, and then give them the skill set to go away and onwardly maintain that service for the future. And practically speaking, it's helpful to think of and agree a common way of working to an agreed standard. So be mindful of how you want to develop the system, what you want your pages to look like. Try and create a standard theme across the system, a standard way of developing, and follow that all the way through your development. And I just want to leave you with a quote from Bernard Schafrick, a principal analyst at Forrester Research, who said of our solution, having looked at your solution, it's rich in functionality, yet it's clean and digestible for people who don't have decades-long experience in coding. And that's great to hear. That's been our mission from day one. Putting the technology into the hands of people who know and understand their customers and giving them the ability to build what's needed for their business. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm always doing that. I'm always rabbiting on and then realise I'm on mute. I think my wife wishes that mute button was something that she could utilise. Right, so That was excellent from Simon, and I have. It's a bit like This Is Your Life, Simon, because I've got a surprise guest for you.
Okay.
In fact, while you were talking, I invited him to pop along because I think it's always good. You know, you reference some customers there of yours, but it's always, I think, always good to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yes.
So to speak, not to say that our guest looks like a horse in any way, shape, or form, because we've got
Morning,
Mike Ward with us.
Morning, Mike.
This was very agile event development and production. And welcome to you, Mike. And Mike, why don't can you introduce yourself? We've already done all the introductions. Obviously, you've joined us sort of at my behest, and thank you very much for doing so. Tell everyone who you are and what you do, and tell us why, in I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, why you chose to go down that low code route. I know you could go on for hours, in a good way, obviously.
I have done, yeah.
Tell everyone who you are and what you do and why you went down that low code route.
Okay, so I'm Mike Ward. I'm the head of IT for South Hams District Council and West Devon Borough Councils. Why did we go down the low code route? Well, about 5-6 years ago, we went through a transformation whereby we removed all of our sort of departmental silos and came up with a very flat structure of sort of where work was divided between specialists, case management, and service processing. And the idea was that we would capture all of the business logic into workflow and push the work down to the most economical area, if you like, the organisation to do the work, where only specialists were involved to make specialist decisions. So planners didn't spend their time answering phone calls; they spent their time making planning decisions. That was basically the idea. And the platform that we got at the time, although we'd done lots of business analysis, we've got about 150 processes we ended up putting onto the platform. It wasn't particularly quick or agile for us to develop new processes, and they were unreliable. The website was the web forms were unreliable, and we got to the point where we needed to look for a more, shall we say, modern solution. And that journey, if you like, took us to Netcall. We were already a Netcall customer. We got their Liberty Converse telephony system. And so I had a number of conversations with our Netcall account manager about what they'd recently acquired, or the Matsoft low-code platform, which is now Liberty Create. And as it gradually evolved, what Netcall were doing with it, we thought, well, actually, we can use this to replace our case management system, web form, and workflow platform. Which, to cut a long story short, is what we did. We did lots of evaluation of the platform, and we loved the way that we could easily build processes. The users that we demonstrated it to loved the way that we could report immediately on throughput of the processes, and that we could see that we could genuinely build processes without any need for too much technical knowledge. It just takes clear logical thinking rather than any IT experience, if you like, mostly anyway. So yes, we went down the low code route. We have a team of a lead workflow developer, 2 other developers, someone who's dedicated to training, and a team lead. And I think since we've had the platform, which is just as COVID struck, we've implemented about 50 between 50 and 60 processes now. Largely the work of those 3 people, and the majority of that work has actually been output by one person. The other thing that it was really good for us, because it gave us the ability to be responding to the demands of the COVID grants and business grants and so on, quicker than our other neighbouring authorities. So we we benefited a great deal from the platform there. I don't know, Nick, what else do you want me to say? I mean, at the moment, we've got the case management systems working well. We've got all these processes. We're on the brink of integrating it with our telephony system now. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell where we are, but perhaps a little bit of an overview of how we got there.
Well, what would be your sort of I guess your journey has been actually using it sort of 13, 14 months in the making. What are the sort of 3 lessons learned that you could share with people on the session today? The top 3 things to share. If people are considering a low-code platform strategy, looking at local government as a platform and all the other wonderful stuff that user-centered design and user-centered journeys, what would you say the top 3 things are to take away?
Well, let me think. First of all, there's quite often in the past we've had to sort of wireframe processes with the users. We almost don't need to wireframe anymore because the first iteration of the process is the wireframe. So it's really easy to create the process, go back to the users, check what you're developing is the spec they need, and if not, you can amend it really quickly. So that's quite a good feature. It is genuinely low code. There's an awful lot of low code branding out there that is probably a little bit more code than you would expect. But what we're finding is we can genuinely build business logic and processes and workflow and web forms and case management without any technical ability. What we do like is that the case management front end for the low code platform is built of low code forms and processes. So we can amend that to our requirements as easily as we can build any other process. So that's really good. We like the fact that we can integrate it with our telephony system, and we're about to do that now, so that the contact database will pop up into the telephony system now. When we've got a caller, if we know who that caller is, it'll pop up the last 3 transactions or a link to the contact records for the agent to go straight into. But what we the main one thing is, Nick, is that of all the things that is surprising is that our officers like using the software. The people in case management really like using the software and actually look forward to us rolling out new processes. Right. Which is unheard of.
Yeah, I like that. I was just going to say, actually, to make it sort of a more balanced view, any sort of mistakes made or negatives. I mean, it's always great to hear the positives, and there are many positives, but sometimes learning about people's not replicating mistakes is another great sort of value add. So any mistakes made or any particular issues encountered?
Where you do need a little bit of IT experience, I would say, is not in the development of the processes. It's in managing change and having a little bit of change control and curbing the enthusiasm of those developing the processes. Right. There's a little bit of benefit to be gained from designing your database objects, if you like, correctly first time around, and those table relationships that you learn as a database administrator sometimes give you a little bit of insight as to how you might begin to build your process. So that kind of knowledge is quite useful, not essential, but useful for getting the process right first time. Any other mistakes? No, not that really stand out, because I think, we have created many processes. We've not had any major issues with any of them, no complaints. We get lots of good 4 and 5-star feedback for our processes. We build feedback into all of the processes or a feedback opportunity into all of the processes that we deploy. And generally, it's really, really good. Sometimes we'll get like a one star for the service that the council delivers, but still 5 star for the ease of using the process to complain about it. So, which is quite interesting. So if I was going to do this again, I'm trying to think, what would I do different? I'd try and perhaps get a slightly bigger team, if you like, and roll out processes quicker than we have. And I'd also want to dedicate more time to building internal facing processes now, so that we can eradicate some of the inefficiencies that we have in some old processes that use Word documents, you know, like overtime claim forms and things like that, you know, we need to get rid of.
Just one final question from me before I open it up, because a couple of people, when we're doing introductions, obviously were keen to understand, you know, savings are you know, savings is always going to be a priority. Can you attach cashable savings? Have you been looking at cashable savings, getting rid of expensive point solutions, or are you not at that point yet? Or is it not an issue for you guys?
Well, it is, because, you know, one of the interesting things that our leader has said to me is, you know, Mike, I don't care how much money you spend in IT. That's great, but it has to show a saving somewhere else. And so the savings come in the process efficiency, I would say, is that, you know, we try and look at building processes that don't have failure demand built in, or you know, need attention. You know, it's that the fact that you can deploy a process and not have to, generally it'll just continue to work, is a saving in resources. It's difficult to say what's a cashable saving, if you like, other than the fact that whatever we spend with Netcall, we're not spending with the other company when we finally decommission it. But it comes down to the efficiencies. And one of our big problems with our old platform was that it was creating work for us in terms of failure demand, in terms of people or customers following up the work that the transactions that they'd raised because they hadn't heard it from us, or it hadn't been done, it wasn't prioritized properly. And our aim is to eradicate as much as we can the failure demand, and just to keep people informed in an Amazon kind of way, if we can, rather than having people log in to see where their transaction is or call us. So, and of course, you've got the development side as well. In a way, you don't need to pay IT developers, if you like, to develop your processes, no matter how sophisticated they are.
Brilliant.
The saving. So
excellent. Well, I've wrapped on and asked enough questions. Can people unmute and put their cameras on, and if you'd like to ask Simon or Mike a question? Oh, there he is. Hi, Simon. Do you have a question?
No, you just told us all to unmute and take our cameras. So I did.
Right. Would you like to make an observation,
Nicholas? Just following instructions.
Well, for what? Well, that's a start. For once, you've followed my instructions. Any questions at all, or any observations from either Simon or Mike?
Stunned into silence.
Yes.
Stunned silence.
Could you see yourselves implementing low code within your own organizations? And if not, why not?
Hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
Hi. Sorry, my dog's now just started barking.
Right.
As he would. I guess the point about having a team to do this, lots of local authorities have small digital teams, and you know, we are jack of all trades, master of none, as it was. So it's how you get the buy-in to have larger teams to do this kind of work, because we're looking at user-centered design as well, and looking at some councils like Dorset and Royal Borough of Greenwich. They're now doing user researchers, content designers. Job roles just seem to be expanding in these areas. And we're being tasked with keeping the budget down and proving it first. So how can I prove it with a very small team before I can say, well, actually, if we had another 4 members, we might make this even more, in all the different areas of the council.
Okay, so
both of you.
Do you want to pick that up first, Mike, and cover off from your experience, and then I'll quote on a couple of others?
I think we've always had what we've called, since we did our first iteration of transforming, we've had a business development team which have done the business analysis and the process building. I would say that you might be able to take the staff that you've got and retrain them to build low-code solutions. And you may find a way that you're not actually having to create more posts in order to deploy this, because you can pull people in from the business or from your web team who I'm sure will take to a low-code solution quite easily. Would you agree with that, Simon?
Yeah, I would. I think, and to give you an example of that, I mean, one of our customers that we work with, Cumbria County Council, they had a very small team to start with. I think they had 2 or 3 people on their team to start with, and they were developing, quite complex processes like blue badge applications, for example, or skips and scaffold hiring, commercial waste, all of those sort of things. And they were developing applications in, kind of from scratch to go live in sort of 12, 14 weeks. And what happened there is that as those services got rolled out, they got more demand. And so they started to work with the end users a bit more, with the subject matter experts, and bringing them into the team a little bit to help with some of that work. And the view there is that they want to start rolling that out to those teams to maintain those services themselves by bringing them on board at the early stage and engaging with them and taking them with you rather than having it done to them. They kind of buy into the approach, and therefore, you can train them up to do some of that maintenance. I'm not talking about building from scratch. I'm talking about onward development, because they understand how the process has been put together, how the pages are put together, how the user interface is put together. But there is certainly a need at the start to think about, as I said, some of that blueprint stuff and some of the standards that you want to work to, so that you can roll that out across all of the services. So it is possible to do it. I appreciate the resources issue and the finance issue that you're all facing. But I think there are ways of doing it, as Mike said, cross-training, retraining, bringing people in when you identify people with the right skills, and training them up on the use of the platform.
Yeah, and I think there's always people in an organisation that are always keen on creating their own shadow IT. Give them they'll create a workaround to something on a spreadsheet or an access database if you give them access. And those are the people that would take to this kind of thing quite well.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any more questions or observations?